Chief Obele's compound could swallow 3 football fields and still have space for a dancing ground. He had cars that made small children shout, "Mama, see!" and a fence so tall even gossip couldn't jump it. But inside that grand compound lived a daughter who carried fire on her tongue and mercy in her heart. Her name was Nkechi, the kind of beauty that made talking difficult. Her laugh felt like home. And when she walked past, even proud palm trees bent small as if greeting her. Suitors came from everywhere: oil money boys in flowing agbada, bank managers with perfume loud enough to do praise and worship, politicians who smiled with all their teeth but showed no soul. They came with cows and wines and words too sweet to trust. Each time, Nkechi would listen, thank them gently, and return their gifts with a calm face. "I want a kind man," she always said. "A man who can carry water without spoiling his respect." People laughed behind hands. "Kindness no be business," they whispered. "Kindness cannot build mansion." But Nkechi's heart was stubborn. She didn't want a husband who counted money but could not count tears. One quiet evening, when the sky was orange like roasted plantain, Nkechi slipped out to the back of the compound to watch palm fronds shake against the breeze. That was where she saw him, shirt patched like a quilt of humility, bare feet dusted red by the road, a long rope slung over his shoulder, and a calabash that told his story without words. His name was Eze, the palm wine tapper. He greeted softly, "Good evening, Ada." His voice was calm in the way a river is calm before it reaches the big fall. She answered, and something in the air changed, like two drums finally keeping the same beat. At first, it was small talk: weather, the price of gari, how the night jogs love to hum. Then came smiles, then laughter that surprised both of them. Eze spoke with respect, but not fear. He looked at Nkechi as if she were human first, before she was chief's daughter. When she said she liked roasted corn, he didn't call a servant. He walked to the roadside woman and bought two, then wiped charcoal off his fingers with the back of his hand. He listened the way most men don't. He did not hurry to impress. He talked about trees like they were elders and climbed them with a grace that made even the wind stand aside. Days became meetings. Meetings became long walks turned to promises spoken with eyes more than mouths. He didn't take time for Umuaka to notice. Some were amused, some were shocked, some were angry that a girl raised on gold would sit under the mango tree with a boy who lived in a one-room house and kept palm tapping rope like a melder. When the news reached Chief Obele, his walking stick backed against the tiles. "Over my living beard," he rowed. "This girl will not drag my name on the ground like a sack of cassava." He summoned Nkechi. His throne room was filled with masks, beadwork, and the smell of old power. "Nkechi," he said, "I raised you to sit on chairs that pray for you to sit on them. Men with names are knocking. Why are you busy with a boy that eats from the top of a tree?" She looked into her father's eyes and spoke in a calm voice. "Papa, Eze is a good man. He is gentle and works hard. When he holds a rope, he doesn't drop people." The chief's laugh crackled like dry wood in fire. "Goodness is for church. Marriage is business. Respect yourself." But you can't beat love with proverb. When she refused to bow, he thundered, "If you choose poverty, then carry it on your head alone. From today, you are on your own." The compound swallowed his words and returned them to the corners. Only Nkechi's heart refused to break. She packed a small bag in the night without crying, left a note that said, "I'm choosing peace," and walked out before the morning cock found its voice. Eze didn't dance when she arrived. His eyes shone, but his mouth shook. "Ada, this life will be hard. My bed is a mat. My fan is the moon. My fridge is the ninth wind." Nkechi smiled and lifted the mat. "Then we will sleep close to the earth that raised us." They married without trumpets. The elders in Eze's tiny compound came with raffia mats and old blessings. One woman sang a song that had only 3 words: "True love stays." Their first nights were simple: boiled yam, pepper soup that negotiated between hunger and spice, laughter that filled space better than furniture. But the village gossip kept growing wings. Whenever Nkechi carried water from the stream or pounded fufu, whispers followed like footpaths. Ha! See Chief's pikin grinding pepper with stone. Some said she was stubborn, others said she was cursed. Nkechi held her head high and walked like a woman who knew her own worth. Eze worked harder too, tapping more trees, waking earlier than dawn, returning home with shoulders tired but eyes bright. Then came the forest night that changed everything. It was new moon, the kind of dark that makes you hear your heart beat. Eze had climbed a tall palm near the sacred grove, where even birds respected silence. They said the grove had a spirit with quiet feet, one that walked like smoke and guarded the old trees. Eze didn't play with talk like that. He tied his rope carefully and hummed a small song. He never tapped palms without greeting them. Biko, he whispered, allow your sweetness to flow. As he moved, the rope slipped. A branch he trusted snapped without warning. For a moment, the night swallowed his shout. Then another whisper, not his own, rose from below. Hold still, son. The rope tightened around his waist in a way that made no sense. It felt like an old hand holding him, firm but kind. He found balance, heart jumping. He climbed down slowly, knees soft. On the ground stood a figure, neither old nor young, neither near nor far. The figure wore a raffia cloak that seemed woven from mist. No face, but eyes that looked like wet earth after first rain. Eze wanted to run, to shout, to cross himself with 100 prayers, but the figure lifted a hand. You saved me first, it said in a voice that sounded like stream water. Don't be afraid. Aze's mind ran back to years ago, when he was a boy. During a storm, he had freed an animal tangled in wire near the grove. The animal had looked at him like a person, eyes deep, then vanished into the trees. He never told anyone. What, what are you? He stammered. The figure laughed gently. A friend you forgot to remember. It pointed at Aze's calabash. You asked the trees with respect. You tied your rope without pride. Your wife chose you when thunder stood against you. I will stand for you when men sit against you. The figure touched the calabash. From tonight, your sweat will speak a new language. Every drop you gather with a clean heart will carry gold hidden from greedy eyes. Not to build pride, but to build people. Keep your secret in silence. Use it to lift, not to crush. When your heart grows too big for your chest, return here and remember. Eze blinked. The figure faded like fog when sun arrives. He touched his calabash. It felt the same. He laughed at himself, nervous, then hurried home, the night suddenly crowded with his own thoughts. He didn't tell Nkechi, not because he didn't trust her, but because the blessing felt like a fragile egg that would break if words were too many. He slept with ears open. Morning came like a drum roll. Eze poured the first gourd of wine into a small basin to check its color. It looked normal, milky, sweet smelling. He dipped a finger, tasted. It was good, but normal. He shook his head. Maybe the night had played tricks on him. He carried two gourds to his loyal customer, old Papa Iro, who ran the small bar near the market square. Papa Iro poured for the early drinkers. One man took a sip and froze. Chineke, what is this? He whispered. He looked into the cup. The liquid threw back light in a way no wine should. Another man swallowed and nearly knelt. This thing dey heavy for mouth, he said softly. Papa Ero stared into the calabash, then up at Eze. In the bottom, where wine normally sits like silk, tiny grains sparkled like something the sun had lost and just found. He pinched one. It beat his finger with weight. His eyes grew big. Hazel, my son, come inside. They shut the door. Papa Hero placed the grains on a scale he kept for measuring snuff. The needle bowed in respect. Hmm. He didn't shout. He didn't dance. He just spoke low. This village is a market. If you carry this as noise, flies will follow. Listen to me. Take this to Nze or Kafo, the goldsmith in the next town. He is quiet and owes me a favor from when we were young and mad. Let him test it. If it is what I think, we will find a way to turn your blessing into bread without feeding wolves. Hazel's heart beat fast. He nodded. That afternoon, he traveled with a tiny pouch sewn into his trouser hem, walking like a man whose life had to look ordinary. Nze Ukafo tested the grains with the patience of an elder. He burned, he hammered, he weighed, he stirred. Then he looked at Eze as if seeing a miracle wearing slippers. Where did you find this? Eze swallowed. Inside my hustle. The old man laughed without sound. Keep your story, but keep your head lower. This is pure, very pure. They agreed on a plan. Eze would bring small portions hidden in gourds, never too much, never too flashy. The old man would melt, mint small rings and simple trinkets, sell in places where mouths were expensive and ears were cheap. The money would return like a shy goat, steadily, not dramatically. No one would suspect the palm wine tapper because the worst disguise is the truth. In weeks, things changed without changing. Eze repaired his roof quietly, bought a second rope, hired two young boys from poor families, paid their school fees, and told them tapping was not forever if they didn't want it. Nkechi began a market table that became a store. Salt, soap, palm oil, then books and pencils for children who wanted to borrow to learn. At night, after counting small profits, they would sneak to the village donation box in the square, a big wooden chest everyone saw but nobody respected, and drop envelopes. Sometimes they dropped money in a widow's mortar, sometimes under a struggling man's mat. No names, no noise. The village started smiling more but didn't know why. Rain felt kinder. Even the gossip women softened. Maybe love has its own bank, one muttered while buying pepper. Eze still climbed trees, still came home smelling like honest sweat, still wrapped his secret in silence. He didn't even tell the boys. He just taught them to greet trees before tapping. Meanwhile, Chief Obele's house of pride began to shake. He had thrown one party too many, tried one political ambition too far, and signed one loan he didn't read properly. The men he borrowed from didn't wear patience on their faces. When the dates on the paper began to chase him, his chest learned a new beat. The cards started leaving one by one. The laughter in the compound moved out. He sold some land in a hurry, but the money vanished like water poured on sun. In the market, people pretended not to see the new holes in his lace. Pride can be heavy, and the chief's shoulders felt every kilogram. He tried to swallow the insult and sent a message to some of the rich men who once knelt to greet him. Their phones suddenly grew cold. Only one came, a man with too much cologne, who smiled like a snake. His help came with chains, not mercy. One night, when the chief sat alone listening to his compound creak, his hand remembered a number. He called his daughter. His voice broke. Nkechi, my child. She closed her eyes and tasted salt and old love. Papa, I hear you. He coughed his shame. If you know where help is, ask help to remember your father. The ground under me is removing itself. She quieted him. Papa, rest. The same God that dresses trees will not leave you naked. The next morning, a fat envelope landed inside the chief's gate. The security man didn't see who dropped it. It had no name, only a note. For family. He looked left, looked right, took it inside. 2 days later, another came with a different handwriting. For food. Soon, supplies started appearing in his store like miracles with rubber bands. Beans, rice, yam, cooking oil. The chief's older relative believed an ancestor had pity. The chief suspected a friend with long pockets. He didn't know that Ikechi was using the same village donation box he used to call that poor people's toy to push money and food quietly into his compound, paying school fees for his younger children, balancing salaries for his staff, and settling small debts before they became large stories. She kept Eze's name out of her lips and her heart out of drama. She didn't tell Eze every detail either. She would only say, an elder is learning humility, and Eze would nod, touch her hand, and let silence say amen. But Storms listened to gossip. The men who lent money to the chief came like dry season fire, fast and hungry. They gave him one last date that had the sharpness of a knife. Bring our money or your name will learn begging on the main road, they said. The chief sat on his long chair and felt it turn into a short stool. He thought of men he used to laugh at. He thought of the palm wine tapper he had chased with thunder words. He closed his eyes and saw Nkechi's smile. He swallowed pride until his throat hurt and walked into the evening like a man who had finally met himself. He went straight to Eze's tiny compound, now a little larger but still modest. He met children playing, a goat fooling around, and the smell of soup that understood garlic. Eze came out, surprised but calm, tied wrapper low on his waist as if receiving an elder was normal business. The chief couldn't hold his head high. My son, he started, the words dragging like heavy load. Life has washed me. I need help. I have nothing to promise you except my thanks, and my curse is withdrawn. Eze didn't say, I told you. He offered a chair, water in a clay cup, and allowed silence to wash the shame out of the hair. Sir, he said at last, if help has a door, my wife holds the key. He called, Nkechi. She came out, wiping her hands, eyes soft but steady. Seeing her father sitting in their compound felt like seeing rain inside a room. Her heart squeezed, but she bowed. Papa, he took her hands in both of his, trembled, and a tear betrayed him. Forgive me, he whispered. I used big grammar to hide a small heart. She hugged him the way only daughters can, firm enough to fix cracks, but gentle enough not to break anything new. They talked. Eze listened more than he spoke. The chief mentioned the final deadline like a drum beat that wouldn't stop. Tomorrow, he said, by noon. Eze looked at the sky like he was reading something on it. He turned to Nkechi. Their eyes spoke a language that didn't need dictionary. She nodded, and the room felt like a promise had taken shape. That night, Eze went to the grove. The moon was slimmer than a new bride. He stood before the palm tree that had almost taken his life and whispered, Friend, people are drowning. The hair thickened. The figure returned, this time bearing a quiet smile that felt like a secret. Remember what I told you, it said. Lift, don't crush. Eze bowed. Thank you. When he returned, he didn't sleep. He melted small pieces, rolled new coins, planned quiet movements, and trusted hold hands. Before dawn, he had packed what looked like gourds of normal wine inside baskets lined with cloths. He and two trusted boys set out. By noon, when the lenders arrived at the chief's compound with papers like cutlass, Eze sat there waiting in clean shirt and strong eyes. He greeted them with respect and handed over a wrapped package. Count before anger, he advised softly. They counted, their mouths closed. The numbers behaved. The leader looked at Eze the way a cat looks at a fire it can't understand. Who are you? He asked. A son-in-law, Eze answered. The man nodded slowly. Then something like fear moved behind his eyes. He gathered his men and left quietly like rain that doesn't want to disturb a funeral. The chief stood in the yard, hands shaking, face wet. He tried to speak, but language sat down. He turned to Eze. My son, what will I pay you? Eze smiled. Grow gentler, he said. That currency does not finish. The chief turned to his daughter. Nkechi, my pride ran faster than my wisdom. Allow me to enter your house with head low and live with heart low. She held him again. Some hurts are healed by a second hug. The village began to suspect that the wind was carrying perfume from a new source. Eze's small act started to look like a pattern. School roofs were fixed. The clinic got medicine. Windows stopped chewing worry. Orphans wore shoes that made them walk like they had futures. People whispered about an angel sponsor who used the village donation chest like a river. Some said it was a diaspora uncle. Others said it was a secret society member who decided to do good for once. Nobody thought of the palm wine tapper because generosity is the best disguise for wealth. Meanwhile, Chief Obele's pride took lessons. He started visiting the market without noise, greeting elders he used to overlook, sitting on small stools without complaint. He sent apologies the way people send invitations, door to door. The village watched him unlearn himself, and some hearts softened. One market day, a new trouble tried to grow legs. A rich suitor from the city, one of those men Nkechi had rejected long ago, returned with a car that looked like a black lizard and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He bragged loudly near the pepper sellers, saying the chief had made a mistake choosing love over money. "Dat girl go still crawl back to us," he laughed. "Who village donation help?" He mocked Eze's rope, called him names that tasted like old bitterness. People shifted feet. Some waited for Eze to explode. But Eze didn't show. Nkechi, who had come to buy fish, just looked at the man with pity that felt like rain on charcoal. "Some people are rich in things and poor in peace," she murmured. The suitor tried to push more insults, but market women surrounded him with dangerous kindness. "My son," Mama Alika said, "we are selling vegetables, not pride. If you have money, buy and go." He left with a bag of tomatoes he didn't want and a heart that had learned nothing. Weeks flew. The blessing continued to behave like a disciplined river, strong but controlled. Eze and Nkechi built a small palm wine lounge at the edge of the village, not fancy, just clean with bamboo chairs and low music. People gathered there to drink moderate, talk honest, and donate into a box that said, "For tomorrow," in paint made by children. The lounge employed youths who had believed work was a rumor. They called it Udo Garden, Peace Garden, business good, gossip better, community best. One evening, news spread that the state governor would pass through Umuaka to commission a new bridge nearby. The whole village danced a little with this chance to polish their image again. The council begged the chief to host a reception. He agreed with humility and knees. Eze offered to supply refreshment through Udo Garden. The chief accepted. He didn't ask for discount. He did not pretend anymore that palm wine was not a king in its own house. The day arrived with sunshine that wanted to take selfie. The governor's convoy rolled in, dust trailing like a brown scarf. Drummers drummed, dancers danced, masquerades stepped like they remembered the first time their feet tasted earth. The chief gave a short speech that didn't try to be tall. People nodded. Then something happened that nobody planned. As the governor raised his glass of Aze's wine for a simple toast, the liquid inside flickered like it had swallowed a star. A hush fell. The sun seemed to look closer. In the bottom of each important person's cup, small grains glowed like cheeky secrets. A councillor gasped. A camera clicked, then clicked again. The governor looked into his glass with the face of a child who had just found a coin in sand. He exchanged a glance with his security man, then with the chief. The chief turned slowly towards Eze, eyes wide but soft. Eze's heart jumped into his throat, then jumped back when he heard a laugh from the back. Papa Hero's laugh, calm and old. He stepped forward and clapped twice. "My people, come. Sometimes celebration brings its own surprise." He lifted his cup. "To a village that now understands quiet generosity. To a chief who knows how to bow. To a palm wine that remembers to bless." The crowd, confused but hungry for joy, clapped and laughed with him. The governor smiled. The cameras forgot what they saw. And the moment passed like a bird that almost entered a house but changed its mind. That night, safe behind Udo Garden, the chief called Eze aside under a lantern that hummed like a lazy mosquito. "My son," he said, voice low, "the day I chased you from my compound, I didn't know I was chasing my own rescue away. Today I saw something in those cups. I am not blind anymore, but I will not demand stories that are not mine. I only want to say thank you in a language big enough." He knelt, a chief, on bare ground, under ordinary light. Gaps scattered like periwinkles. Eze tried to pull him up. The chief refused for one heartbeat longer, then rose slowly, eyes wet. He turned to the people gathered. "Hear me. When a man falls and the ground refuses to mock him, he holds the ground respect forever. He faced his daughter. Nkechi, I owe you more than father words. I owe you the truth. And then came the twist that opened every mouth and held them open. Nkechi stepped forward and cleared her throat. Papa, she said gently but strong, there's something you don't know. When your pride was eating your house, when hunger started chewing your name, the money that kept your table standing came from the village donation box you used to laugh at. I was the one feeding that box for your sake and for our people. I did it with the money my husband brings in quiet ways. I hid my name so that your name could breathe. I was your helper wearing a simple wrapper. The chief's shoulders fell like a wall, finally tired of pretending. He took two steps towards her, then another, then went on his knees again. This time before her, hands shaking. My daughter, he wept, voice breaking into pieces. You carried me when I threw you away. Forgive me until forgiveness gets tired. Tears spread like rain across a crowd, ready to believe in good again. Women dabbed their eyes with wrappers. Men cleared throats too many times. But the forest had one more shock to throw into the night. As the crowd pressed close to comfort and to rejoice, a wind rose, cool and sweet. Leaves murmured as if gossiping with angels. From the edge of the square, a masquerade entered, not the noisy kind that flogs boys for fun, but a tall, silent one, clothed in raffia that blinked with dew. Drums forgot their duty. Children hid behind legs. The masquerade walked straight to Eze, paused, then turned to the chief. In a voice like far thunder softened by hills, it spoke. Chief Obele, do you remember? The chief trembled. Remember what? The masquerade pointed towards the sacred grove, its long finger painting lines in the dark. Years ago, when pride sat heavy on your head, you sowed trees that didn't belong to you. You signed papers to fell the grove, to turn stories into firewood. An old one begged you. You laughed and sent men with chains. But the storm came, the saws broke, and a boy untied an animal, freeing a spirit you almost caged. The chief staggered as if slapped by memory. The village murmured. Very few knew that story, buried under cement and time. The masquerade faced Eze. You saved me when you were small and poor. I saved you when you were grown and humble. Each drop in your calabash has been a gift taken from greed and given to grace. Gold in your wine is the pride your village left at the forest edge long ago, melted down and returned to the humble. Gasps sliced the hair. The masquerade turned to the governor, then to the cameras hiding behind people's eyes. Let this be known without names. The land prospers when it is respected. Those who kneel to help will rule better than those who stand to be feared. Then came the most scandalous part, soft but heavy. The masquerade raised its hand and a small bronze pendant fell from its raffia sleeve, landing in the dust with a quiet clink. The chief bent to pick it, hand shaking. His eyes widened. It was the family pendant he had lost 20 years ago, the one that disappeared on the same week he ordered the first trees cut. On the back of it was an engraving only he and his late father knew. Power bows to mercy. His knees gave way again. He looked at Eze with the eyes of a man reading a new Bible. My son, he whispered, voice trembling, this blessing, it is my shame turned into your crown. Eze reached out and lifted him before the ground could taste more tears. The masquerade's head tilted toward Nkechi. Daughter of patience, it said, the land has watched you give without noise. Because you chose love when comfort called your name is now water that will never dry. It faced the crowd. Let the chief make a public confession. Let him announce a portion of his lands to become a school and a health center run by people who remember the poor. Let him use his voice to protect the grove so that the trees can keep blessing your children's tomorrow. The chief, shaking but clear, raised his hands. I will, he said. I will send papers with humility this time. I will guard what I tried to sell. The crowd, shocked and grateful, broke into a hymn no one had planned, old words dancing with new meaning. The masquerade began to turn away, then paused and did something that left the village talking for days and nights and then days again. Slowly, it lifted its raffia mask. Gaps turned into a wave. The face beneath was not a ghost or a stranger, but the weathered, gentle face of Nze Okafor the goldsmith. But before anyone could shout his name, the face flickered, like river reflection when a fish jumps, shifting into the clear, unmistakable face of the chief's late father, the old lion of Umuaka. Eyes young again, smile softer than people remembered. Then, as mouths fell open and knees buckled, and the governor himself forgot protocol and made the sign of wonder, the face flickered once more and became Eze's own face for a heartbeat. Then mist, then nothing. The raffia fell to the ground empty, as if someone had stepped out of it into air. The lantern shook. A baby laughed somewhere. A goat sneezed. Life held its breath and then let it go. For a long moment, nobody moved. The chief reached for the empty raffia and cradled it like a lost child. He looked at Eze, at his daughter, at the sky. Our fathers have returned, he whispered, and they have chosen the humble. The governor stepped forward, removed his cap, and bowed to the grove's direction. From today, he announced, voice steady, this forest is a protected heritage, and we will build that school and clinic with state support, but under the guidance of the people who remember how to kneel. Cameras forgot to flash. Hearts remembered to beat. Eze took Nkechi's hand. They stood together, not above the village, but in the middle of it, the way a tree stands in the square, solid, useful, and loved. People surged forward, not to touch their clothes, but to drop coins and notes and promises into the donation box that had been laughing quietly all along. Mama Alika started another hymn. Papa Hero wiped his eyes and cleaned dust. Children danced without rhythm because joy doesn't always need it. Later, in the quiet of their home, Nkechi rested her head on Eze's shoulder. Did we just see what we saw? She asked, voice small. Eze smiled into the dark. Some blessings don't need a crowd to prove they are real. She laughed softly. Our life became a story. He kissed her forehead, a true one. They didn't talk about gold or spirits. They talked about the school's first teacher, about the clinic's first nurse, about how to keep the donation box honest and full. They slept like people whose pillows had become lighter. By morning, the village woke into a new habit. Men who used to spit near the grove now greeted it with two claps. Children walked past Udo Garden, touching the donation box as if it were a bell of good luck. The chief moved with a simplicity that made even stubborn people smile. He sold two more cars and used the money to start the clinic building. He signed papers with witnesses from both rich and poor houses. He visited the grove alone one dawn and placed the pendant at the base of the tallest tree. I hear you now, he said. I will not forget. A calm passed through the leaves like approval. And then came the ending that nobody tasted coming, the one that made tongues heavy and light at the same time. On a Sunday morning, as church bells gathered people like corn into baskets, a convoy unlike any other rolled into Umuaka. Not government, not loan sharks, not suitors. A small van with the logo of a museum and heritage council stopped in front of the square. Out came elders from other towns, a priest of the old ways in white, a historian with more books than hair, and a small woman with glasses who had eyes that saw stories. They had traced a rare artifact, a bronze mask stolen from Umuaka decades ago, a mask that once sat in the chief's father's hut, a mask people thought was lost forever. Somehow, mysteriously, the museum had received an anonymous donation with strict instructions: return it to the people, not the government, and hang it in a school where children can laugh near it. When they opened the crate, the bronze face stared back with the same half smile the masquerade had worn when it flickered between faces. On the inside of the mask, scratched in tiny letters that only curiosity could find, were words that raised goosebumps on every arm. A poor palm wine tapper is the bridge money cannot build. Protect your humble ones, and your gold will never rust. Who wrote it? When? How did the mask travel and return like a child who sneaked out and came back with a trophy? Some said Eze wrote it in another life. Some said the spirit borrowed a pen. Some said the mask wrote itself the night the masquerade vanished. The mystery refused to sit still for explanation. It did not matter. The school opened with a mask on the wall, shining above chalk dust and children's laughter. The clinic began with a parade of grateful mothers. The grove stood taller with respect. And in the lounge called Udo Garden, the donation box became a proud grandmother, always ready with something for tomorrow. People still drink and tell the story, and every time they get to the part where the masquerade lifted its face and became the father, grandfather, son, and then nobody, voices drop low and eyes grow big. Some swear the calabash still glows on some nights. Some swear the gold is gone and it was all lesson. But everyone agrees on one thing about Nnkechi and Eze. They taught Umuaka that you should never look down on humble beginnings, because the person who will lift your destiny might be wearing old slippers and carrying a rope. And if you listen carefully on wind cool nights, you will hear the grove whisper the moral that sits at the center of the tale. Don't despise the day of small things. Your helper may be hidden in rags, and the hand you push away might be the hand that will later keep your name from falling. That is how a chief learned to kneel, how a village learned to give, and how a palm wine tapper married a princess and turned ordinary into legend, with a secret that still walks the forest paths, smiling, waiting for the next humble heart to greet a tree before climbing. The end. Moral lesson: don't look down on humble beginnings. Your destiny helper may be wearing rags. Please like, share, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.